Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of Two Minds, One Podcast.
14, bro.
14?
Episode 14, yeah.
Huh. It's that long, huh?
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Well, episode 14. Carrying on from last week, I did say I had something interesting to talk about.
Yeah, you mentioned data. Our online
Your data, your online personality, who you are. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure most of you do, but I'm still going to preface this. Whenever you go online, you have an IP address, and you go to a website, and it has essentially cookies, and it accepts what you're looking at, how long you looked at it for, etc., etc. This information is also processed by whoever your internet provider is, so be it your cellular, so like, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, those guys,
Okay.
or your internet provider at home, be it Spectrum, AT&T, Verizon, or your internet provider at work, right? And so, all of this information on who you click, what you view, what you hover over, it's all useful information.
What you hover over too?
Yes, what your mouse hovers over.
Really?
It's all useful information for those who have access to that information, be it the internet companies. So then this information then gets collected, compiled, and sold to people, right? So they know what your online or your digital footprint is, right? So they know,
like
so
things that you like to buy, your interest, you mean?
yes. So like if you're window shopping on Amazon,
or things you're researching.
yeah, or things you're researching, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever been researching. For example, I'll use myself. Had to do a project for Arduinos in university, and so I did a bunch of research on Arduinos, watched videos on Arduinos, and guess what? All of the ads that I was seeing on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Google, all of them Arduino related. Huh. Funny. Interesting. Start doing research for a dog. You get a bunch of dog related things. Right? So it's not only the information that they're collecting off of you, from what you search, what you view, what you like, what you don't do, but also what they hear. Because as you know, if you have an iPhone, a certain S-lettered auto program is always listening to hear its name. So it can then... Yes.
Why can't we say that?
I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to activate Siri on any of the devices here.
Oh, but that's activated to your voice. But okay. Continue.
But it's still listening to every single word that comes out of your mouth, including when you are and are not asking it questions. How else is it going to know when you say, hey?
And its name.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right? So, all this information is very powerful. Very powerful. And this information gets funneled into the data servers, right? And then, it can be tapped into and it can be sold to third-party companies from internet providers, etc. Right? Which is why VPNs, things of that nature have become so prevalent, especially now in the digital age, right? Well, those people are not the only people spying on you, looking for your data. I'm sure many of you are aware of the Patriot Act that happened following 9/11, which essentially gave the United States government, specifically the NSA, ultimate power to collect every bit of your information of who you are so they can track you in case you are a risk, right? And in part of that, right, was also the internet, the dark web, things like that. So the United States government went to the large companies that are internet providers, such as AT&T, Verizon, and, asked them to have access, to work with them to have access to that information. So it's a lot of information, which means you'd have to tap a lot of locations, right? If you're tapping every single server, right? Fortunately for the United States government, before every, piece of data, online data information gets sent to its server location where it's pinged off of, etc., right? It goes to these giant, giant cables on the ground or under the ground, right? Depending on where they are. Specifically, if you're, from a country to country, you're connecting to a website in China, right? That information is coming all the way from China, and it comes along a cable laid on the ocean floor across from China to United States.
No way.
Yep.
A cable. We haven't even been to the bottom of most of the ocean floor.
You don't need to be to the bottom of the ocean floor to lay the cable down. You just need to know how deep it is and how strong the cable needs to be to withstand the pressure. And with sonar mapping, you can find out the shortest route that requires the least amount of depth. So they do that, right? And then they do all of these cables.
So we literally have cables running on the bottom of the ocean.
Yes.
We don't have a wireless communication between one country to the other country.
No.
We're literally connected.
It's faster. You're literally connected. There's thousands of miles of cable, which is why all the people in Australia complain about their internet, because the cable that's laid across there, right, loses its signal so fast, right, because of the length of the cable, right? It's thousands of miles.
To Australia,
from wherever they're getting their internet from.
Okay.
Their dial-up, their Ethernet internet, right?
Because shouldn't they have their own internet there?
Yes. Well, that's going to get into a whole other episode about how internet works, right?
Now you got me intrigued on how internet works.
It works pretty crazy. It's essentially radio waves, to simplify it. But neither here nor there right now. Just to know that a lot of your internet, especially if you're using a hard line, the reason it's called a hard line is because it's a physical line that returns back to one of those big giant cables. To one of those servers, and that server goes back to the big cable. Well, these big cables have to come out of the ground at some point and reach out to the servers. So there's these houses that look like just normal big houses.
Like a house?
Like a house.
A building?
It looks like a house. When you look at it, specifically satellite from space, it looks, from the front, it looks relatively, normal. The side, normal. The top, you're like, huh. It has a significantly more amount of AC units than a normal house would. Mm-hmm. And it has other things. The reason why, it's not a house. It's actually a job location. It's actually a building where one of those cables comes out of the ground, right? And connects to and splits off to the other servers where it gets sent off, to the other connections, right? And so what the U.S. government did after the Patriot Act was essentially got in line with, internet providers and said, hey, we want to tap these cables. And so, because the U.S. government was, is almighty and all powerful, it did so without the public knowledge of us knowing. And so for years, our information was being monitored, right? And obviously, the amounts of information passing through those cables every day is on its magnitude's order larger than a terabyte, right? So they can't process it all. So what did they do? They created an algorithm to help them process the ones that matter. What are the ones that matter? People of interest and high likelihood to cause issues, aka people that terrorist, right?
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, now, the next logical question is, how do we know all this? How do we figure it out? Because obviously, you didn't know there was literal track of cables on the ocean floor.
I knew they do the oil pipes, but I didn't think they actually did. It's gas pipes, right?
It's oil pipes. It's oil and gas.
They do the ocean too.
Yeah. Speaking of oil and gas pipes, it's one of the most lucrative welding jobs they offer. You actually only work 6 months out of the year. Because you spend, I think it's 3 months on the oil rig, and then 3 months off, and then 3 months on and 3 months off, right? But you get paid $180K to be a underwater welder, right? Because you have to dive.
Well, yeah, it's very dangerous though.
Dangerous. You want to know why it's dangerous?
You can explode.
No,
die.
explosions are more common reasons why.
Why?
It's called delta P, change in pressure. High pressure, low pressure. Ocean floor, high pressure. Crack in pipeline, low pressure. Therefore, equalize, human, swim, eviscerated, pool of blood. So there's a crack in the line, and there's water being sucked in, and you swim too close to that water, it creates like a vortex, and it sucks you in, and it tries to suck you through the crack, and it literally rips you to shreds. Or you get, if the crack's big enough, you get sucked up inside of the pipeline.
A small crack. It's got to be a significant crack to have that kind of.
If it's enough
suction.
crack to cause water to leak in, it's not a small crack. To that level, because think of it like this: if it starts as a small crack, and by the time they go to fix it, it's not a small crack, because they've noticed that there's excess amounts of seawater in their oil or their crude oil, which means they have a crack somewhere.
Yeah,
which means it's not a large crack because it's obviously changed the density of the oil.
So you gotta find it.
You gotta find it, and then when you find it, this is literally how they fix it. They get a giant curved piece of metal. They angle it and they drop it so that it's sucked to the crack, and they weld around it like a patch job, like this.
For real?
For real.
I thought they actually fixed the cracks or replaced the pipe or something.
Dude, for them to replace the pipe, they would have to stop drilling oil and sucking up stuff, right? And so it depends on how important that thing is. But most of the time, they don't stop it. That's why it's delta P that is the scariest thing. Change in pressure. Scariest thing for underwater divers.
That makes sense. I mean, depending on how deep it is, the pressure. And man, a small crack like that. Yeah. A crack that big.
Yeah.
But in that width, will suck you in.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Because it's, what is it? 5 or 30 times the pressure of, atmospheric.
More depending
on where you're at. And then, there's like 100 or atmospheric pressure or 100 psi going through the crack, and you're at like 1,000 psi. That's 900 psi difference. Remember, 1,000 psi is almost enough to cut you.
Oh no, 1,000 psi will cut you.
Exactly.
1,000 psi of water.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it'll try to suck you through that crack. Anywho, so you have your cables on the ground, come up, right? They get split into these servers. So they tapped into them. The reason we found out they tapped into them was because a little guy by the name of Edward Snowden, who was an NSA contractor, leaked a bunch of information when he found out that this is what the government was doing. They were watching and tracing everything we do online. It was a complete and utter violation of one's privacy. Right?
Yeah.
And so what happened? He leaked a shitload of documents and then fled the country. Honestly surprised he got away.
What? No, I think didn't he leak them after fleeing?
I don't remember if he leaked them after. I think he flew to Hong Kong. After fleeing? Yeah. But I know that he leaked them and then he got away. And he is still on the FBI's most wanted list to this day.
Let me see. I remember hearing about him. Let me pull him up real quick.
The point is that happened in 2013. Right? These data centers and stuff, right? The big headlines of "they're watching us, Big Brother's watching you" made the headlines, but the leaked documents are still out there.
Yeah.
And if you read them, you'll find these houses of where information is stored, right?
So yes, he flew to Hong Kong.
First?
He flew to Hong Kong first. In May. And then in early June, he released thousands of classified NSA documents to journalists.
Thousands, dude. Thousands. It's one of the greatest mass leakings in
history.
United States history, to be specific.
Yeah, well, it also says he he didn't like the ethics that they were doing, and he tried bringing it up through the right channels at work.
You can read,
and it didn't work.
Dude, some of the documents that you can read are literally when they're like, how do you know who's, like, they'll pose a question, like they're brainstorming PowerPoint slides, and they'll be like, how do you know who to watch? And then, the PowerPoint says you don't, so you watch them all. And how do you know how much data to collect? And they said you don't, so you collect it all, right? And so it's literally like, it's not like, oh, we only collected, information on those particulars, and it's only, what they did. No, they collected everything. They have literal folders of people, like folders, like of who you worked for, how long you worked for, what you did, what you didn't do, what you ate for breakfast that morning, how many times you took a shit that day, things like that, for these high-risk individuals, right? And now, I get it. What we're saying here is a complete violation of your privacy, and for most people that aren't obviously high risk, it is a privacy. And I understand that.
Yeah, but
I understand that war and how countries interact have changed. Spies have been a thing since the Soviet Union. One would argue that we're not in a war of physical land territory, but information, right? We're in the information war, which has been happening since the Cold War, right? Because how did the Soviets get the plan to the atomic bomb so quickly? Oh, crazy. It was a Soviet spy in the United States Manhattan Project. That following the Manhattan Project finishing up, within, I think it was a year or 3, they had a nuclear bomb. And not just any nuclear bomb, specifically the plutonium explosion bomb, which was the significantly harder design to do, because it required having perfect precision explosions of every single dynamite that went around it. So, I'll backtrack a little bit. For those of you that don't know, nuclear bombs, right, especially the ones during World War II, right, there's 2 that were developed. There was the uranium bomb and the plutonium bomb, right? The uranium bomb, what happens when a nuclear item or a radioactive item reaches critical mass is that essentially a radioactive item radiates away a proton, right, and decays over time, the material, the atoms, right? So it starts at 100, and then it radiates away 1 proton. So then now there's 1 atom of, that has 99 protons, and the other 99 the other atoms still have
atomic number changes.
Yes, its atomic number changes. Thank you. Right? And so if you can do that in a confined enough space, you can get a runaway reaction, which then you're breaking the bonds of.
Yeah, you get one proton that smashes into another atom, that splits it, that smashes into another, that splits out.
Yes, and it becomes like a little pond, like a little pyramid that just, and you get extreme amounts of energy out of that.
It's like the game of dots.
Yeah, or like domino. You push one and it pushes the other, and it gets a runaway effect.
Yeah, every time I saw that or imagine that game of dots, but you start with 1 dot and then you just line out. A triangle kind of thing.
Yeah, and so that's what happens. And so uranium, significantly easier. You get just a large enough mass, it'll go critical by itself. However, plutonium.
However, okay.
However, yeah. Plutonium, significantly harder, right? You can get a really large mass of it together and it won't go critical, right? However, if you pressurize the uranium so that it gets more dense, right? So same mass, change in volume, it will go critical. And so for one type of nuclear fission bombs, using plutonium, they line a bunch of essentially explosives around it, and they detonate all the explosives at the same time. And as you know, an explosion causes a force in both directions.
Yeah,
I mean, in all directions, right? Yeah. But in this case, we only care about 2 directions, out and in. The out force, we don't care about. The in force collapses and compresses the plutonium, which then causes it to go critical, which then causes it to explode, right? And that's the bomb that the Soviets copied, right? Meaning they had significantly more information leaked to them than they would have if they had come up with it by their own, right? Because even, Germany and the United States were racing towards, both having a nuclear bomb. But, the United States won first because they poured way more money.
Well, I mean, you forgot, you mentioned one. The U.S. ended up with the idea of 3 different types of bombs.
No, we're not talking about the hydrogen bomb. We're talking about fission bombs here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a nuclear bomb. When they were doing the Manhattan Project, they ended up coming up with 3 different.
They thought the fusion bomb would be impossible because to get the fusion bomb, you would need the fission bomb. So you need step A to solve for step B.
No.
You're right.
No, but they came up with the idea.
They came up with the idea
hydrogen
of 3
fusion bomb.
Yes.
Right. So they came up with 3 different chemicals to use. Hydrogen, but they said that has to be fusion, and then uranium and plutonium.
Yes. Right. And so this war of information has been happening since the 70s, and even then, those cables, that I'm talking about, before they were internet cables, can you guess what they were?
What? Spy cables?
No. Telephone cables.
Really?
Yes. That's how you're able to make call across the internet. That's how you're able to call across from here.
I forgot that. We used to use dial-up, a phone line.
Hard line. A phone line. Yeah. You try to call somewhere else, right? Especially if it was really far, you have to call the operator to connect you, right? And so the U.S. would literally have submarines go and have divers dive and connect these giant contraptions that would splice into the cables on the ground that were phone lines and record a bunch of Russian conversations that are happening. So instead of having to tap every phone in Russia, we just have to tap one giant wire, right? And then within that giant wire, obviously, there's specific ones that you want to listen into, which is the ones that they found, which is crazy with the amount of manpower and sheer dedication and ingenuity to create an underwater recording device, right? And the only reason we know this is not because the United States, came out and said it did it. It's because Russia found one. Because they pulled up a recording line for maintenance, and the United States submarine couldn't get there fast enough, and they found this machine on there. Dude.
Got caught.
You got caught, red-handed. Hand straight up in the cookie jar. Dude.
That's comedy.
So.
How do they know it was Americans?
Come on.
It was in English.
Probably. I don't know, dude. But they just assumed it was Americans. But obviously during that time, tensions were very high, right? And even so now, we live in an age now that war like we've seen in Ukraine is very uncommon. And it's more of the political posturing and geopolitics that we're seeing now between the United States.
That's thanks to nuclear bombs.
Yes.
Let's be honest. Let's be real. Because we created nuclear bombs. Then we created fission bombs. The worst of
fusion?
Fusion, my bad. Yeah, I said wrong. You're right.
Yeah, we started with fission.
We started with fission. We created fusion bombs, which are way more powerful.
How much more powerful?
I think the strongest one that Russia did was a 100.
The Tsar or something like that?
Tsar, T-S-A-R. Tsar, yeah. Bomb, H-bomb. It was like a 100 megaton something. I think they didn't explode it that big because it would have been too big. It would have destroyed the island and then some. And then the radiation fallout would have made it back into Russia. They used a half of that size when they tested it, and that half was 1,000 times bigger than the bomb that the U.S. dropped on Japan.
Yeah, I heard when that bomb went off, it like sent a shockwave so far out it like broke windows and shit.
Oh, and it's like
in the surrounding areas for people that lived around there.
It crossed the ocean and went into Russia. So they tested that bomb on an island. I forgot the name of the island.
Mm-hmm.
I think it started with the N
because
it was like a deserted island.
Yeah, deserted.
Yeah, as far as they know, deserted, right? We just gotta believe them that it was deserted. They blew it up at 50, half the design size. Okay. The mushroom cloud went up to like 62 miles high or something. It was ridiculous, almost in space.
That's crazy.
It was crazy, and they felt the shockwave like 700, 800 miles away.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Think about the amount of energy output through that. It's insane. But yeah. Also, I found out a curious fact about the sun the other day.
The sun?
Yeah.
So hold on. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, dude. This thing weighed 27 metric tons.
Okay.
The Tsar bomb, right?
Okay.
It weighed 59,000 pounds. All right. Let's see. Yielded was approximately 1,570 times more powerful than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined.
Yeah.
Combined.
It's insane.
How?
It's massive. But
dude, that's like volcano or worse. You're almost on.
I would argue the nuclear bomb is worse than a volcano.
No,
because a volcano erupts for a couple of years,
Well, there's volcanoes that have massive explosions. I mean, what was it? Mount Everest or Mount
Whitney?
No, it was in Washington.
Yeah.
Was it?
Not Whitney.
No,
it was Whitney. You talking about the one that blew its side?
It blew its side off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. But that eruption only lasted a couple of days. Nuclear bomb lasts a couple of seconds and vaporizes everything within a 1 mile radius of its center. And then the shockwave destroys anything in the area. And then with like a 15 or 30 mile radius, the radiation, if you were present, is enough to kill you the next 2 days.
Oh, no,
and if you're in
dead.
there if you're in like the next 100 mile radius, if you're in there for longer than like 5 days, you're gonna die, right? Yeah. So it's like stages of death.
Dude. So here, you said that it shattered glass far away.
Yes.
Here you go. The shockwave was felt as far away as the Dixon settlement, which was located 430 miles away, and it shattered windows up to 560 miles away. So just so you guys get an idea of how far that is. Okay, if you go in a straight line from Los Angeles to Phoenix, Arizona, in the center, okay, and that's just under 400 miles.
Yeah, that's like 390.
Yeah, you gotta add another 160 to that. If I remember correctly, that almost puts you in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Dude, that puts
from
you
LA to Albuquerque.
That puts
that's at 50% power.
Not bad. That puts you at the border of Arizona and New Mexico.
Yeah, and that's only at 50% power.
Yeah, because of these bombs, we don't have war like that no more. Because nobody is willing to be like, let's start a war where we actually kill each other. Because they know that if we just keep killing each other, eventually, a psycho is going to come up who's just like, going to say, in the Batman movies, what do they say?
Oh.
Some men
just want to watch the world burn?
Yes.
Yeah.
And somebody will hit that button, and
I believe you, dude.
And it'll be
it puts you into New Mexico. It puts you, if we go to Silver City, which is in New Mexico, it's just over 600 miles. Just over 600, so 608.
Puts you into New Mexico, and that you're talking about
That's
radius. That was
That's
the
half.
radius.
That's a shockwave radius.
Yeah.
Right? That's half.
I mean, that
At
in the
50
diameter, you're
yes,
looking
and-
at 1,000.
Like
Well,
that
1,100
bomb
miles.
seems to be big enough to cause a tsunami if it was detonated over water.
No, yeah. If you detonate it over
Think
water
about-
or in the water,
Because think about how much air it displaced.
but that would
to
ruin.
keep-
That would kill everybody. You detonate water, you're basically poisoning the ocean. You're killing fish. You're killing entire ecosystems.
Did you know more bombs have been detonated up underground than above ground? Nuclear bombs? You know why?
So people complained, and it was too dangerous, or to hide it from each other.
It was done because people complained, and from both countries, the United States and Soviet Russia, that if they continued testing above ground, it was, super bad.
Well, yeah, the wind takes the
And
radiation somewhere.
And so they struck an accord saying that they won't test above ground, or in water or in space, right? But they both left out underground. Why? Because it's significantly easier to tell if your enemy is blowing up bombs underground.
Well, yeah.
Why? Because it
Shockwaves.
shows up in a seismometer,
Yep.
right? The
It's like
shock
earthquakes.
waves,
Yeah.
like an earthquake, and it shows up completely different than an earthquake.
Yeah.
Right? Speaking of earthquakes and natural disasters, California was recently hit with a hurricane for the first
Wow.
time in 50, 60, 70 something years or something like that.
1939.
Yeah, 70 years.
It,
Not
it,
only were we hit by a hurricane,
well, it died down too. It ended up being categorized as a 3,
and then,
and then it went down to a 4.
up to a 4?
No, it goes down.
I thought it went up.
No, I
Category 5 hurricane
think
is like Hurricane
rating.
Katrina, dude, which is like the
think,
super bad stuff.
Let's see.
I know tornado ratings go up that way as well. Anyway, the point is, we had a hurricane
Mm-hmm.
and an earthquake on the same day. Can you believe that? What are the odds? On top of that, we also had Hawaii on fire.
Oh yeah, that was really bad.
That was super bad. Hawaii was literally on fire.
Okay, so
And it
yeah,
was really, really bad.
So yeah, you're right. That's my.
See?
It
I told you.
categories up.
Categories up. Normally when things get more severe, they category up. Like earthquakes, category 1, category 10.
Well, I mean, I understand that because
Yeah.
that's how they do it. Logically, to me in my brain, that don't make sense.
Why?
To
I'm
me,
curious.
because number 1 is number 1. That's first place.
Okay,
Like, that's
but
top
let's-
tier. Like
but let me
this
think
is
about
the
it.
this
Value.
is the thing that.
But think about value.
And I know if you.
Value. 10 is 10 more than 1. So therefore,
Yeah, if
its
you think about
value,
it in
its
value.
value is higher.
Yeah,
right?
but if you think, then if you
Because
think
you're
about
thinking,
it in a
no,
competition,
you're
first
thinking
place.
competition,
Yeah, I am thinking competition,
but it's not a competition.
but it is a competition.
The
between
Hurricanes are
storms.
not. The Hurricanes
No,
are
no.
not getting into a fight, dude. They're
No,
not-
but we're classifying them against each other.
Yes, based
No?
off their strength. Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
and so you have to have a baseline, which is 1.
I guess that, and that I understand why they do it.
It's like imagine saying you're lifting weight, dude, and you're like, yeah, how much did you lift? 1. I'm lifting 100. So 1 is 100,000, 100 times more than 1. That makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, I'm just
No.
telling you how my brain works.
I know
here.
how your brain works.
Okay,
bro.
I'm just
trying to
letting
let
you
you
know
know
to
that it
me
makes
why
no
I was
sense.
so confused. The way they read it to me doesn't make sense. I understand it
Well, you can
because
go.
they explain the logic to me.
You
Okay,
can go fight the people who rate hurricanes,
No,
bro,
no.
and tornadoes.
Look. I'm just telling you. To me, it doesn't make sense. But when I understood the logic when it was explained to me, I get why they read it that way.
No, yeah.
That's just saying how my brain would rate something versus how someone else
So
would
your
rate
brain's
something.
all about winning. We trying to win, bro.
My brain, yeah.
We trying to win out here. But
But anyways,
Yes.
the hurricane got downsized. It got downsized to a tropical storm by the time it hit land.
yeah,
So it didn't end up being that bad. It did cause flooding
it caused flooding in a lot of areas.
in
We
certain.
still
Yeah.
got a lot of rain.
Some areas, I think some areas got like 5
A lot
inches.
of the desert areas got a lot of rain.
Yeah.
Dude, completely random. Remember when we got that Siberian blizzard storm that hit us in the winter in California? You got snow at your house?
Oh
Are you
yeah,
not-
this year.
you-
I remember now. Sorry, I'm trying to remember here, man. Just relax.
Look,
Uh-huh.
look.
What?
I just had the idea. What did the redwood trees look like during that blizzard? Because they must have been caked with snow.
Yo, there
'Cause we
has to
know-
be pictures, no?
I'm sure there's pictures, right? But
Why
I'm
don't we
sure
look
there's
it up
pictures.
and we can post it up?
We could,
Uh-huh.
but I'm sure there's pictures. But think about it. I'm sure the redwoods are at high enough elevation
Mhm.
where they get some snow sometimes when it gets really cold. But we had like a super blizzard storm hit us, which left an insane amount of snow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we already know that areas near the redwoods, like, what was it? Mammoth, areas like Mammoth, got feet of snow. We're talking
Oh, yeah,
about
yeah, they got-
entire cabins completely covered with
So
snow.
there is pictures.
Yes, I'm sure it looks beautiful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
They got. Oh no. Houses were destroyed completely.
yeah,
in
they're
Mammoth.
in Mammoth.
They were
'cause-
buried.
Yeah, the ski lifts were under snow. The thing you take to ride you up to the top where you jump down on the ski
Yeah.
lift was underneath feet of snow,
Yeah,
which
they
is
got,
the insane.
I
One,
think
I
they
think
got-
over a weekend they got like 27 feet of snow.
I think in total they got over 30 feet of snow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Even in here in Big Bear, it was causing problems.
Big Bear shut down. You couldn't go in and out.
Yeah, you were trapped
Mm-hmm.
in a winter wonderland. But or winter hell, depending on where. But it's crazy, right? Another thing that got me thinking about the redwoods was that they are the tallest trees in the world,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And based off
Well,
of
the tallest tree ever recorded was a redwood.
is a redwood. The
Yeah.
tallest tree
No, I
in the
think
world
it fell
is
on redwood. It is redwood.
well, if the
yeah.
tallest tree in
That's
the
why
world
I said was.
the tallest
because-
tree in the world falls,
Yeah.
the second tallest tree in the world now becomes the tallest tree in the world. It's like if the person in first place dies, you're now first place.
I mean, yes, but if you count it in history,
I'm
like
not
a
counting in
record
history.
you know what I mean?
I'm sure there was ones taller when they spanned all of, the West Coast.
Yeah,
because
when we weren't here.
so I found out
Mhm.
during the gold rush and stuff like that, the redwoods actually spanned. The area they span right now is relatively small, but they actually spanned a majority or a very large section of Northern California where they're located, right? However, as people started building their house and needed more coal and stuff and building things, they're like these giant, massive trees, these logging companies, right? Were cutting them down illegally, which was illegally, right? Because
So they were protected.
it became protected, right? Because there's legal logging and illegal logging. So there's certain areas that are dedicated to be logged and areas that aren't. Obviously, the areas that are dedicated to be logged are of higher people, so it's harder to find good trees. However, you go to the areas that are not supposed to be logged, and guess what? Your competition is less. So it's actually a majority of the redwood tree forest was cut down. So what we're seeing now may not have been the largest trees that are ever recorded.
Oh, there might have been trees bigger than
Bigger, and the crazy part is that it spanned much longer and further inland. It's possible, they said, that the redwood trees could have spanned all the way down to the coast near Monterey and Big Sur, but they were cut down with climate change and things like that. And on top of that, the largest tree in the world is located in the redwoods. However, it is not able to be visited,
anymore.
and it is kept a secret now
Mhm.
because of people.
I
Go
found
ahead.
this. It's called the Hyperion.
What is that?
It's the tallest tree.
It's
The
called the
redwood.
Hyperion?
Yeah, that's what they call it.
They called him Hyperion.
Yeah, they call it the Hyperion.
Yeah.
It's a name, but it's a redwood.
Yeah.
But it's also in the Sequoia family.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I guess the redwoods are part of the sequoia.
Sequoia
They're
family.
just redwoods because they're tall, but
What
not
is
as
it?
wanash.
What's the word? Plant family trees biologies.
Yeah.
It gets real crazy. They'll be like Sequoia brephicus, alphamicus, and
Well,
blah,
so
blah,
it's
blah,
a
blah.
sequoia because
Yeah, it's like the family,
big,
and then like
their trunks are huge, right?
they're
but they're
massive.
not. But they're not as wide as a sequoia.
As the sequoia tree.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
the super massive ones.
Yeah. So, but it's in Redwood National Park.
Yes.
And it's a nickname. It's nicknamed. That's what it's nicknamed. They call
Hyperion.
it Hyperion.
What a badass name.
Right? It's taller than the Empire State Building.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, not than the Statue of Liberty.
Oh.
And the Big Ben
Tower clock.
This thing is 380 feet tall.
That's insane.
So there's pictures of it, and it literally sticks out above the other trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get a picture and post it up,
but
so they can see too. Yeah.
But yeah, the redwoods are insane, and the fact that they actually span most of San Francisco is insane too, and how little is left of them.
Didn't they go all the way down to Sequoia National Park, right? It was like covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, fun fact, LA was a forest.
Yeah.
Before we turned it into a city. And not only was it a forest, it was bear country forest, which is why California's like flag has a bear on it, because it was the California black bear or something like that, or brown bear.
That was a brown bear.
Brown bear,
right?
dude.
Yeah.
And that guy got hunted to near extinction. Why? Because brown bears are scary. And it's just insane to me how much the geography has changed over the years, right? And how much we have essentially terraformed the earth.
Oh, we've terraformed large areas.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is why to me, I'm glad that I don't remember what president it was or who did
Roosevelt or something like that.
Well, he was the first to do the national parks.
Yes.
Right? So you got Yellowstone, the first national park, at least I know here in California. And not California, in the States, in the United States. But Alaska
is essentially a national park.
Yeah, the whole thing is essentially a national park.
Also, I'm sure this is a fun fact.
It is also protected from oil mining.
It's not anymore.
It's
not protected from oil mining anymore. Trump stopped that.
He stopped the tree mining.
Tree mining? I think he allowed tree mining in national forests now.
And he certain allowed national parks in Alaska.
In Alaska, he allowed oil reserves to be drilled in Alaska, which is a crying shame.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I hear Alaska is utterly beautiful, gorgeous, in the fact that it is essentially the wilderness. Still, to this day, it's just the wilderness.
Here you go. So it's not just Trump, by the way.
Oh. Who was it?
The PBS's website. Controversial oil drilling project in Alaska approved by Biden administration.
Oh. All the presidents. They're all fucking stupid anyways. But yes.
Officially approved a project in Alaska known as Willow. It is expected to produce some 600 million barrels of crude oil.
Only
in the next 3 decades. Supporters hail the energy and jobs it would create, while opponents say it would accelerate emissions and climate crisis.
It is.
And it's going to ruin a lot of the natural forests that we have in Alaska.
Yeah. Because we're going to show up there. People are going to show up there.
They're going to start building mining towns and...
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Oil rig towns.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it's crazy to see how much the geography of just specifically California has changed over the years. It's even crazy to see how much is left of it. When you look at the national forests and national parks, they feel massive, right? They feel large. But when you zoom out and you actually look and see, the amount of area they cover is actually relatively small, right?
Yeah, no, it's tiny. I mean, we just went to a glacier, and you see, it was what, 50 miles across, 60 miles to drive through it, across. But like, I mean, longitude, it went into Canada.
Yeah, but I mean, still, like, it's still small. Like, look at New York. We look at the Central Park. That's what all of New York used to look like.
I mean, you can go to the northern part of New York, closer to
like upper state,
and it's green.
I mean, yeah, it's still green, but it's not the forest that it used to be, right? Well, there actually used to be a rainforest here, right? And it is no longer, just because of how densely populated it is, right? I mean, you look at Virginia and like North Carolina and other states like that, and yes, you still have like that foresty area, but even those places are still highly populated, right? It's quite interesting how geography has changed due to the arrival and, subsequent, I guess, control that we have over the elements in the sense of changing things, building stuff, and how much we terraform things. It's quite interesting.
To me, it seems crazy. I'm not saying that we don't use the resources that the Earth gives us, right? That the planet has, right? We were born thanks to the planet, right? Us as a species, right? Mm-hmm. We were able to evolve because the planet gave us what we needed. But now we get to a point where we're just destroy it. Like look at the Amazon rainforest. Like rainforests don't come back.
Yes, the Amazon rainforest actually cannot exist.
You can plant anymore. You can plant the trees that were in the plants that you find in the rainforest in the Amazon. They tried it.
It doesn't come back,
and it won't grow. They'll grow. They just won't grow back the same.
Yes, the Amazon rainforest is a remnant of, the larger rainforest that actually covered most of South America, right? Mm-hmm. And the rainforest the reason it exists only happened, all rainforests actually only happened during a specific time of the Earth's climate in its years and eons, right?
It was a high humidity,
right, and very hot. Right, which allowed for a lot of perspiration, right, which allowed plants to clump together.
Before the last ice age or whatever, right? Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and so allowed a lot of humidity for the plants to be very green and grow a lot.
Literally, almost all of the water that falls on the Amazon rainforest gets used up by the rainforest, right? And
it rains there because of the plants, because of the rainforest,
because they perspirate off water.
It creates this.
It's a really interesting cycle. Rain, like its own individual rain cycle, separate from the world's rain cycle. It's very interesting. In which that reason is why you actually can't have another rainforest. So as rainforests are continually being destroyed, they will never come back. Even if we try to replant them, they will never come back. It is impossible due to the Earth's current climate to achieve the state of a rainforest.
A rainforest came due to
the perfect conditions, the perfect time.
It was much higher oxygen levels, okay, than we currently had. Higher humidity, right?
The southern Asian rainforest is also diminishing. All of the big islands, like a lot of, if you look at, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, all of these big islands and all of the island chains there, Indonesia,
So
all of those places are on there. All of those islands right, all the way up to Papua New Guinea, are all considered part of their southern Asian rainforest. And all of those places, rainforests, are also dying and also will never come back.
So, I just looked it up. Out of all the rainforests in the world, there's only that we've had, right? From when we started counting.
Yeah.
Right, records. Only 36% remains intact.
Yeah. And it decreases every year. Unfortunately.
This is what I'm saying. Like I think certain areas need to be left alone.
Yes, but it's like it's very hard, difficult, right? For we say that from a point of privilege. We do because we are allotted a lot of specific privileges by being born in a country that is already developed, that is a world power, and it's harder to tell a kid. I understand why they do it. Dirt poor, not to go do a job. They doesn't understand the long-term implications.
Oh, no, for sure.
Because the short-term implications are so much more compelling and so much more necessary, right? It's hard to educate that. It's like, yeah, the rainforest is gonna die, but to some people, it's like, I don't care because I'm starving and my mom's starving and my brother's starving. It's hard to get that.
I understand, but I feel like
I'm sure there's a way.
No, there's plenty.
There's plenty that so that
case
shouldn't happen.
The problem is we don't get along as people together. It's not about helping each other. It's about going into another country and taking its resources for another country. You know?
Yeah. It's unfortunate. Quite unfortunate indeed.
No, it is. I'd like to go see a rainforest someday.
I do agree. I would also like to go see a rainforest. I think it'd be...
That's why I want to go to Indonesia.
I want to go to Indonesia. I also want to go to Vietnam. I want to go see the world's largest cave.
We should go to Bali.
Cambodia is also really pretty too, I heard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of areas. But I believe that's all the time we have for today. So guys, if you had anything you liked, anything that stimulated what you think on climate change or deforestation, leave us a comment down below. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe, and thank you.